Hello LEGO fans, welcome back to LEGO 48. Recently I wanted to set up a testing loop in my living room that needed a fairly long return, so I grabbed my trusty ball pump to use as an intermediate lifter. Much to my dismay, the ball pump didn't work so well, as it kept popping. This is an issue that I alluded to in my previous ball pump video, when I said that this design had a tendency to blow itself apart. Well, since I've reinforced it, it can't do that, but it can spit balls everywhere, which isn't good either. As you can see here, I've made several changes to the infeed trying to solve this issue. They don't actually help the popping issue at all, because this isn't where the problem is. They do improve the performance of the infeed though, so I'll cover them in a minute. Back to the popping issue. I tried filming the pump in slow motion, but couldn't see what the issue was. Finally, I tried turning it around and filming it from the front, and eureka! I found the problem. Watch as the ball is pushed up through the flaps. Note that it gets pushed off to the left side, either because of resistance on the right flap, or because of the ball above it. Either way, the ball ends up stuck on the end of the right flap and jammed for a moment against the left flap. Now the ball is stuck on the end of the right flap and gets jammed for a moment against the other flap. Eventually, the piston will overcome the resistance and force it through. But now it has a bunch of force behind it, which releases suddenly. This causes the balls in the chimney to bounce upward, potentially releasing multiple balls at a time. So, now that we know what the problem is, how do we solve it? I decided to replace the plate on top with 4 of these pyramid slopes, which do a better job of keeping the ball centered as it's lifted. When assembling this, you do have to make sure that all of the pyramids are perfectly square to the plate underneath, so they don't catch anywhere. I also decided to replace the panel on the feed piston with a pair of these pyramids. These feed perfectly well, and the backside is now sloped, so balls pushed by the agitator won't jam against it. As for the infeed improvements, while troubleshooting, I noticed that balls were getting hung up on these slopes, so I removed a plate to lower them. This creates more space to collect balls at the front, so these front wedge plates aren't needed anymore. Pulling these out opens up the interior and really simplifies the design. Now, the only issue is that, when there are only 2 balls in the in basket, they will want to sit perfectly centered on this piston. I can fix this by replacing one of the 2x2 curved slopes with a 1x2 curved slope. Next to it, I'll add 1 more plate of height and top it with 2 1x1 quarter round tiles. Balls can still feed in from this side, but they sit further back from the front than the other side, so when the piston drops down between the 2 balls, the right side has a better chance of getting onto the piston than the left. Finally, you'll see that I replaced the straight rotor with an L-shaped half beam. I've used this piece successfully in many of my other in baskets. It's fundamentally the same amount of agitation as the straight rotor, but with a longer gap between the trailing arm and the next arm. This gives the agitated balls more time to move toward the infeed before being agitated again. Another alternative is to use a single 3L half beam, which is decidedly less aggressive, but still effective in this small in basket. Thinking a little outside the in box, I wondered how well would a cam work as an agitator. Turns out, really well. Because the leading edge is curved, it does a nice job of gently pushing balls towards the outside of the in basket. Last but not least, I decided to try a 3-arm rotor. I really thought this would be too aggressive for this small an in basket, but I like it. Yes, there is more ball action inside the module, but I'm still getting smooth and consistent ball feeding. Yeah, I don't really need this much agitation for the ball pump to work, but I'm going to use the tri-rotor in my ball pumps just because I think it's more fun.